I gave away my grandmother's cracked metronome. And 10 years later, her tempo became the beat that helped stroke survivors rewire their steps and their sentences. My name is Soren Vale. In my pocket, I keep a tiny brass set screw, the one that used to hold a metronome's pendulum steady when life wasn't. When choices get loud, I roll that screw and listen for the part that clicks. Grandmother taught kids in a sunlit room where dust moved to the beat. Her metronome had a hairline crack in the wood and a flattened weight that gave the tick a late afternoon swing. Not wrong, just human. When she was gone, the house felt like a held breath. I took the metronome because it sounded like her, and because grief needs something that keeps time. At the hospital practicum, I met Maris Elan. She wore tired like a precise instrument, cared for but used. On her lunch break, she hummed scales into a straw to warm her voice. We'd pass each other in corridors that smelled like antiseptic and New Hope. One Tuesday, a man named Theo had words that wouldn't stand up after a stroke. He could lift his foot but forgot on which beat to ask it. Digital clicks slid off him like rain off wax. Maris tried clapping, counting, coaxing. Nothing stuck. I took out grandmother's metronome. The glass was spidered. The pendulum weight had that soft dip at the top. I set it to 66 and let it breathe. Tick, tock, tick, tick, tock. The room changed shape. Theo's foot found the talk. His mouth found the tick. He said, T, where T had been living alone. Maris looked at me the way you look at a ladder you didn't see until you needed it. Could I borrow it? She asked. I heard grandmother's laugh, the one that forgave you while daring you to try harder. Borrow it, I said. A week later, I said, keep it. My hand closed around the brass set screw, the only piece I couldn't bear to leave. A gift is clean in the telling and complicated in the living. Kindness is not tidy. It knocks things out of your own shelves. Maris's first lilt trial was in a church basement where the floor pitched like an old boat. They used painter's tape to lay a walk line and sang "two and breathe" step to the wobbling tick-tock. The first patient smiled mid-step and scared himself with joy. The second fell when the speaker cut and the beat vanished. Paperwork arrived with words like protocol deviation. She started over. Kitchen timers, metronome apps, tambourines in a tote bag, failures that wrote bruises on budgets and courage. Each time she almost quit, she'd look at the cracked metronome, flip the pendulum, and hear the late afternoon in it. The mercy of a beat that waits a hair longer for you to arrive. I, meanwhile, tuned pianos to other people's songs. I stapled flyers, delivered packages, took a layoff politely. I wrote a paper about entrainment, how bodies like to fall into step, and lost a scholarship when I refused to file the results under anecdotal. At night, I'd hold the set screw until the grooves left a crescent in my palm and whisper to a room that did not answer. I hope I did right by you. The metronome lived on Maris's desk through 7 versions of the project. Patients called it the little clock that doesn't hurry me. A man who had lost adjectives found 2 while swaying to it. Kind beat. A woman who had not walked outdoors in months took 10 steps, crying and laughing, because she could hear a pace she could love. A regional board paused the trials. Maris rewrote the protocol with gentler numbers, wider exits, and something she named the forgiveness window. A micro delay on the backbeat that matched how real voices lean. Her peers rolled eyes, then lent gear. Year 9. An email. National Rehab Consortium, live demonstration. Candidate, Lilt Tempo Therapy. If the demo landed, clinics across the country would get tempo carts and training. If it failed, the project would go back to being someone's generous hobby. She called to tell me, her voice bright and brittle. I wish you could see it, she said. I wish I didn't need to, I almost said, and kept to, you've got this. The night before the demo, she laminated cue cards with beats marked tick, tock, tick, tick, tock in my grandmother's looping hand. The one I'd written from memory on a napkin and she'd copied to real paper. Morning came with a problem. The card was missing. And when she flipped the metronome, the return spring stuck, the pendulum refusing to breathe. Digital clicks? Perfect. Too perfect. Patients drifted off like boats sliding past an unkind pier. 10 years after I gave away the last sound of my grandmother's room, I stood outside the demo hall with a volunteer wristband and a feeling like a held note. My name wasn't on a list. My doubt was. I tapped the railing with the set screw, soft metal on old paint. Tick-tock, Tick-tick-tock. On stage, Maris turned her head a few degrees, like a tuning fork hearing a cousin. She scanned the crowd, eyes passing over the life I'd grown into. Older jacket, quieter bones, no recognition. Then she looked down, saw the metronome refusing to swing, and closed her eyes the way a person closes a book and remembers the story anyway. I walked to the side door. A guard said, "Staff only." I held up a bottle of valve oil from my piano kit and the kind of face people make when the beat is about to drop. He shrugged me through. Up close, the metronome's crack looked like a river that had decided to stay. I loosened the plate with the set screw, whispered, "Please," and let one drop of oil pretend to be a miracle. The pendulum sighed and tried a small swing. Maris's hands hovered like she was about to catch a falling cup. "We don't need perfect," I said. "We need late afternoon." She laughed a little, and a decade stood on its hind legs and behaved. We didn't have the card, so I used my pocket knife to score 3 tiny notches on the wood where the forgiveness window lived. "Breathe with these," I told the musicians. "Let the second stroke wait a hair, exactly long enough for a foot to forgive a brain." The first patient, Theo, now a volunteer, stepped onto the mat. He looked at the metronome, at us, at his shoes. Then he smiled the small smile people wear when a room has remembered their name. The beat started, tick-tock, tick-tick-tock. Theo lifted on tock, landed on tick, and said, "T, time," with a space that wasn't a failure anymore. It was phrasing. Another patient tapped syllables against the new pulse. Ba-na-na, shoulders loosening into the swing. A woman's hand shook in time, then under it, then with it. Crowd noise leaned forward. Monitors recorded velocity curves that cared and didn't, because the room could simply feel it. The consortium chair folded his arms and then didn't. He looked at the line of people matching a beat that made room for them to arrive late and right. He said, low but into a live mic, we should teach." The feed went to clinics across the country. In 100 rooms, staff tilted their heads the same few degrees at the same time. A nurse in Idaho drew 3 tiny notches on a whiteboard. A grandfather in Queens spoke 2 more words to a granddaughter who had learned to count with him, not at him. Maris took the mic and didn't give a speech. She set it down. She turned to me and only then really saw me. There are recognitions that are loud. This one was a chord softly tuned. She reached for my hand and pressed something into it. The glass panel from the metronome's window, carefully removed at some point. A spidered oval that had watched a decade of difficult hope. "Keep a peace," she whispered, "so I don't carry this alone." We stood there with the good kind of silence. The pendulum ticked. People walked. Voices married beats. Data behaved like a choir that had finally found the key. After the demo, the chair announced, Tempo Therapy would be rolled out. Training, carts, grants. Maris named the national program Afternoon Pace because the world doesn't need more perfect mornings. It needs afternoons that wait. I put the set screw and the spidered glass in my pocket. They clicked once, together. It sounded like a promise I could keep. No morao. Just a room inhaling and exhaling at the same time, as if someone had gently reminded the day how to breathe in time again.